Hello, so this is the preparation for my next acrylic abstract painting, and as you will see I have sectioned out some squares and oblongs with washi tape, and these are going to contain the crackle paste. So I want to do a little bit of interest in these, and these are prepped and ready to go. And the next stage is I'm actually going to apply a layer of white gesso primer onto those areas to help the crackle paste to stick. The crackle paste is the step one, the PBO Studio, and once the base is brushed on, I'll be using a palette knife to apply the paste itself. And here you will see that the sections have been applied. I've let it dry overnight and removed the washi tape, and around the areas that we have, the little squares of crackle paste, the oblongs of crackle paste, I have also applied some texture paste because I want a little bit more interest going on, a few more grasses, and so I've used the De La Rowney texture paste, and I have literally just scooped it out with my palette knife, brushed it on and made little knife marks through it, little sort of blobbed areas of interest. And now I've actually drawn on a couple of shapes, which I don't normally do, but I wanted this to have a very autumn feel, and I wanted to show you how I use a drawing pen or ruling pen to apply masking fluid, because these areas are going to be masked, and as you can see it has a little screw on the top of it which opens and closes the two blades, so you can get quite a lot of different widths of lines depending on what it is that you want to do. So I'm going to show you how to mask out different areas, and I'm going to be using this particular masking fluid, which is Winsor & Newton, and it is white. You'll see that it is actually white, and when it goes onto the white paper it will sort of disappear a little bit, but that's okay. So normally I would shake it up, but it does create a lot of bubbles. As you can see, it's a strange liquid, and in the lid it does have that sort of rubbery sort of residue, so clean out that regularly. So set the size that you want of your ruling pen, dip it into the fluid, and you can see it forms that reservoir. You can see exactly how much of the liquid you've got in there because it stays in that point. And literally just holding it slightly on its side, you can see I'm just pulling it along that line of that spider's web, and it will deposit the fluid in a nice even flow, and you can see how it's gone down in that reservoir. So I'm going to continue doing that, and I always wipe the top and the bottom of the ruling pen just to prevent any sort of gooey blobs that can come through. You will get used to it. It's one of those things that the more you use, the more practiced you become with it, and it's quite straightforward to follow. The the drawn lines that I've put on, they will actually disappear under the masking fluid. Once I remove that, if there is anything left, we can just use a normal eraser to get rid of any pencil lines, but I think that the paint will work on that. So I'm going to continue and just fill in those long lines, and then it's just doing the little bits in between. Again, you can work quite delicately on this, it's quite handy. You can use a brush if you prefer, but use an old paintbrush, because once this masking fluid gets in between the bristles on the brush, it's very, very difficult to get out. Some people use a sort of soap rubbed onto the brush to protect it a little bit, but I've always found that it still seems to get in there. So just making the little blobs on the toadstool, just like colouring in really with the masking fluid, very straightforward. And I'm just going to add some grasses, some little bits of areas of interest, so that we've got something to play with when we put the inks on. So you can really go to town, and if you decide you don't want to keep them once they've been done, you can always paint over the top of them. So it gives you those options to do little fine lines and retain some white colour. I've taken it right down into the texture and the crackle paste as well, because I know from the previous video that I did it does work, so we can create lots of areas of interest here. Okay, now this is all applied, so I need to let this dry. At the moment it's very difficult to see where it is unless the light shines on it, so I'm going to let that dry and then I will show you. Here we are the next day, and you can see where the liquid is, the masking fluid. It's gone a sort of a yellowy colour where it's the thickest, so you can see quite easily where it is now. We can see our little blobs on the toadstool, so we're all set to go. So here I have my prepared splash practice that I always do before I start a painting, just to make sure the colours work. We have a variety of tube paints of different makes, brands. We've also got a selection of inks, acrylic inks. My favourite burnt sienna is going to make an appearance as usual, and we've got the burnt transparent umber. And I'm going to introduce some ordinary Quink pen ink because I love this particular shade of blue. I think it's a lovely bright blue. So I'm going to pop that in with my usual tools that you can see, my palette knives, brushes, trusty water spray. So I'm going to have some fun with this and I'm getting ready to go. So please join me for watching it next time.